Water when I'm thirsty. Drink.
What up, everybody? Welcome to another Water for the Thirsty, where it's the word simply, the word refreshing. I'm your, host facilitator, Jared, and with us tonight we got on the good Bishop Sharika, Jerome, Courtney. Lorraine is in the wings here, but she's also commuting, so she's incognito tonight. And I'm hoping that we'll see Kenrick and Cliff in a little bit. But in the meantime, we go ahead and chop it up about our Bible reading plan, processing through Genesis and Exodus, and the books of Luke, Acts, and Luke. And of course, we just finished the Proverbs and just kicking off the Psalms. So our conversation is going to come from in there. Courtney had an idea that he was wrestling with and forming, and so I'm asking him to continue wrestling with that, and we'll join him in the conversation there.
All right, cool. What's up, y'all? All right. My question and my thoughts were stemming from the reading of Acts this time around, and we maybe touched on it before, but my thoughts are, again, the acts, thinking about the acts of God through the Spirit, and I think I'm always in the thought process of how do we apply, Christianity, especially in times of Acts, the disciples, and the modern disciple. So I'm just thinking about it. Like, do we experience that same spirit, to preach the gospel with quote unquote power, to proclaim to the world the truth? This invitation to mercy, to execute Jesus's will. From my reading, it's like, hey, they rejected me. This will be the second chance for many to accept the mission of recovering, the lost. But the way it's being presented is like it's not going to be through argument or, like I said, it's not going to be a battle of wits of, debating some logical arguments for those, especially that have hardened hearts already, right? And it's like, how do you break through that crust of worldliness, selfishness? What power are we promised to have to be able to, um, or how do we go about that, doing this duty in light of what we're against? The forces of darkness, and I guess just people just aren't maybe not even as receptive. Like, how do we do that with our living with everyone?
So what I'm hearing you ask is, how do we carry out the mission, and what power do we have, or if we have any power?
Right. Yeah.
I will go and ask this question. What is the mission, as you understand it?
Again, my understanding of it is to share that knowledge that we have, our living knowledge, because we're growing each day, each week, in our own experience with God. How best do we share that with others, but like effectively, maybe efficiently? Um, like what can we do in our living
Hmm.
with one another to really, I want to say, affect hearts. I think, you know.
I got you. Jerry, what do you think?
Ooh, let me put something in the chat. Courtney, you can probably read it,
Sure.
but I feel like this is it's not too long. I think. Let me just make sure I. Oh, I see what's up. I see what's up. 1 second.
Okay.
Uh, I guess there's a word limit for the chat. All right.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yes.
A little bit more. A little bit more. Don't worry. So I know, especially Christians, we like to think, oh, well, love is the answer. Love is all we need. Nah, player. Nah.
Yeah.
That is it right there. Would you be so kind, sir?
Okay.
Hold on there, hold on there, Courtney.
Sure.
I'm moving it over so I can put it on the screen and we can all follow along.
Yo, I was just about to be like, yo, who's invading the chat? Like,
That was me.
I'm like, who is host? Like,
Host, not roast. That was me. I couldn't even get.
Okay. The right use or exercise of knowledge, the choice of laudable ends, and of the best means to accomplish them. If wisdom is to be considered as a faculty of the mind, it is the faculty of discerning or judging what is most just, proper, and useful. And if it is to be considered as an acquirement, it is the knowledge and use of what is best, most just, most proper, most conducive to prosperity or happiness.
Okay, you're gonna have to unpack that. That was a
Oh,
whole mouthful. Like,
yeah. I plan to. Don't worry. But that's actually my take on it. That what is lacking is wisdom. So wisdom in my mind, especially when it comes to doing God's work, is it's gonna marry your 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 intellect, your understanding with, if it's compassion, if it's with a little bit of being forthright, even being stern at times. There's no magic bullet. There's no broad brush with which you can paint everybody and everything. It really takes wisdom to understand. Okay, this is where Jared is at in this minute. This is the type of approach that might work with him. This is where Bishop is at. This is the approach that will probably work with her. And when I say work, not necessarily that you're gonna see a result right now, but it is going to tend towards a positive outcome. Because most of the time, all you can do is plant a seed anyway. And then sometimes, it might boomerang back a year later, a month later. But I think we get so caught up in apologetics and knowing all, the what is it, 28 fundamental beliefs or 82? I don't even know what it's up to now. There's this
like
book.
37.
I got to show you guys this book. 1 second. Yes. You see that?
Oh wow, answers to objections. Wow,
Look at the
nice.
size of this book, though.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this is about every possible objection, essentially, that people can raise to Adventism and well, Christianity to a
Wow.
larger extent, right? So what are you going to do? You're going to have this ready in your iPhone and just whip it out if somebody says, "Well, I don't believe in,"
X-Theory.
I don't even know what, right? And I think that is where we as Christians get caught up. So the first thing is, by people seeing your love, that's probably going to draw them in regardless.
Okay.
But then it's gonna take that wisdom, and that wisdom doesn't come easy. But it's gonna take that wisdom to be able to interact and engage with them. I tell there are people, members of the LGBT community where I work, and I love them all. I'll hug them all. I vehemently disagree with your theology, but we good. Um, there are people who are atheists, who are agnostics, who are I'm on the fence. And again, love you, happy to support you. Figure out any way I could be there for you, but it will be clear I disagree with your theology. And it's funny when, in taking that approach, more often than not, they come asking questions, and then they make statements like, "How come you're not like all those other churchy people?"
Mm.
Now they also know they just can't come and like, we're having a pride parade and would you like to come? No, sir. But yeah, I think that wisdom is what is really necessary.
All
Okay.
right, so wisdom. How about you, Bishop? What if
I think the question is, Courtney, what I heard you say was like, how do we have that like same fervor in so many ways like they did back in the day?
Mhm.
And I don't know if it's a relatable fervor. I think their fervor back then was for their place and time,
Mm.
and ours is very different. I can only imagine living back then where, I mean, even if it's Old Testament where the father was heavily involved in making himself known in the absence of technology, in the absence of all these things. So phenomenas were just widespread, right? Like you can't deny it.
Mhm.
Nowadays you see cars driving, ain't nobody driving, people sleep. You're just not sure if it's like God took us there or Elon and them, right? And I'm being facetious with it, but I'm also being serious. Or even New Testament, when you walk with Christ and you see him lay hands on something and or someone or whatever, there's a level of fervor where it's, you see and know, versus I think now, if we were to lean on replicating what was done in the past, it wouldn't be relevant. I think we have to see and figure out what is impactful now in our maintenance period, which is what I like to call this time, and then work with that.
Mm.
Because I don't think we're like, for instance, like back then when it's like the return of Christ is coming soon, or I'm going to send my son.
Mm.
Those were, in my opinion, things that, again, in the absence of the earth, the way we've treated it and all that stuff, you could see signs. You can see pillar of fire. You can see these things. If we were to lean solely on, what Matthew says or what Revelation says, we've seen those things happen twofold, threefold, fourfold, and so you can't really lean on these are the signs of the times. We're in a maintenance process. And so I think if I were to look, as I look at it that way, I try to get the fervor out of showing people I'm making the best of what is given to me
Mm.
based on what has been asked of me. Treat
Mm.
each other good, reflect me, and hold on till your day comes. And your day and my day may be maybe the same day, and it may not be.
Right.
But I think Jerome, even he talked about, like, people will say, well, how you different from them, right? And it's like, I ain't do nothing special. I ain't lay hands on nothing. You good. I don't have to agree with you. So, and this is why I think when I go to church, I hate people like, are you ready to die for Christ? What? Like, it's just,
yes,
right? Like,
bring it on. No,
Yeah.
not really.
no, right? I like, if I, those questions are so insulting because I can repent right now, but I don't mean it. It's because I'm afraid.
Mm.
True.
If-
So Courtney, I will go. I would start. I would start in Acts 1:1-8.
118.
So Acts 1:8. I would start there, um, because this particular verse to me summarizes and anchors the question that you're asking, because it also Luke sets it up very nicely and uses that to describe what he's about to tell you about in the book of Acts. And
Yeah.
if you could lift any verse out to be one verse that's descriptive of all of it, not taking it out of context, but keeping it in the context. To me, this verse does it. So go
You said
ahead.
1:8.
Yeah, Acts 1:8.
I can read it.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, let's go from 6.
6. Okay.
Oh no, sorry. 4. Go from 4.
4. All right. And I'm gonna be reading from the NIV.
Mm-hmm.
On one occasion,
I mean Acts 1:4. Sorry. Go ahead.
all right, yeah, Acts 1:4. On one occasion, while he was eating with them, he gave them this command: "Do not leave Jerusalem, but wait for the gift my father promised, which you have heard me speak about. For John baptized with water, but in a few days you will be baptized with the Holy Spirit." Then they gathered around him and asked him, "Lord, are you at this time going to restore the kingdom to Israel?" He said to them, "It is not for you to know the times or dates the Father has set by his own authority, but you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, in all Judea and Samaria, and to the ends of the earth."
Yeah. What you see and hear there?
Mm. Well, one, I see this. There's going to be, there was promised to them, uh, they're going to be blessed with the gift. One, something that he has spoken about to them many a times while he was still eating and teaching and being with them. And there's going to be there was a baptism, so they were waiting to be baptized with the Holy Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and when you receive, say you will receive power when you are baptized with this Holy Spirit, when this Spirit comes upon you. And from that point, you will be, they will be his witnesses in Jerusalem and all of the surrounding areas.
Let's add on to that Exodus chapter 4.
Exodus.
We just read this as well. I noticed it again this time. I was listening to the Bible Experience, and what's his name? Forrest Whitaker was playing Moses. You could hear his voice playing Moses, and he was doing this kind of stumbling thing as Moses, someone who couldn't speak, right?
Oh, okay.
So in the Bible Experience, Forrest Whitaker is Moses. So as he was going through this, I noticed. So read from verse 1.
Okay.
Exodus chapter 4 from verse 1.
Okay. Moses answered, "What if they do not believe me or listen to me and say, 'The Lord did not appear to you?'" Then the Lord said to him, "What is that in your hand?" "A staff," he replied. The Lord said, "Throw it on the ground." Moses threw it on the ground, and it became a snake, and he ran from it. Then the Lord said to him, "Reach out your hand and take it by the tail." So Moses reached out and took hold of the snake, and it turned back into a staff in his hand. "This," said the Lord, "is so that they may believe that the Lord, the God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has appeared to you."
I
Then the
pause
Lord,
there.
yes, sir.
What's the tie-in that you see? Is there a tie-in that you see between this and what we read in Acts?
Mm,
Any relationship? Any overlap? Any correlation? If you don't
um,
see it, that's all right. Bishop, Jerry, any correlation?
I see that from this reading. I'm seeing that Moses at this time he's been approached and called by the Lord to have. He has a duty. He's called him to do, and Moses right now he's doubting and saying, "Well, all right, you told me to go do this, but what if they don't believe me? What if they don't even listen to me and say that basically this word didn't even come from God?" And now he's telling them that essentially he's given him this power, this ability, this sign that he can show, so that he says, so that they may believe that the Lord, the God of their fathers, has appeared to you. So this is supposed to be a sign given to him so that he can show others that God has indeed appeared to him with this message.
And what do you see happening in Acts? Is there a relationship to what's happening in Acts? Yeah, that's what's happening in Moses, but do you see any similarities?
I do.
What do
I
you see?
think Moses has questions about, and I'm relating it to like my work, like the strategy, like what we doing, why we doing it, like, and same thing in Acts where it's like, Lord, will you restore the kingdom? Like, what we doing? What's the plan? And the reaction is like, yo, don't care, don't worry about that. Like, you gonna get what you need when it's your time to get into the ring. And here it's like Moses, you got what you need in this staff, now get in the ring. Don't worry about nothing else. I'll take care of everything else. There's a level of trust that in so many ways, if you focus on this part, you ain't gonna do what I ask you to do.
Yeah. So yeah, I like that. One of the things I did see in the Acts part is that they had an emphasis on one thing, and they had to be redirected. Moses' focus was on his inadequacy to do it, but his focus needed to also be redirected, even though it was a different focus. What I do see is the instruction that they're given is to wait for this power. When the power comes, then go be my witnesses. Simple instruction, go be my witnesses. What's that? What is a witness? What is he telling them to do? Simple terms. What does a witness do? And don't be all spiritual. What does a witness do?
They snitch.
They snitch. Pretty much.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
That's what Jesus said. Don't be spiritual. That's what it is. They say what they saw.
They say
if
what
you're
they
a good
saw.
witness, see what you saw. But if you're, and you know, like us from the Caribbean, right? If we have to say what we saw, we're all animated and we act the part and we like get into it, and people feel like they were actually there when it went down. And it's like literally, people should feel like they were there when it went down.
Yeah. A witness is someone who testifies to what they've seen and experienced or heard firsthand. Right? Moses was then given instructions to go and speak on behalf of God. God came to me. I'm coming to tell you, God told me, God came to me and he told me this. Moses was concerned that the people would not believe that God is the one who sent it. So he asked God, well, what if they tell me God didn't send you? So God says, I'm going to give you this power so that they'll believe that the message is coming from God. Similarly, if you follow what happens for the rest of Acts after this, the power comes so that the people could believe that these people are from God, because otherwise they would become another sect and another group of people. And every time you notice that the power happens, it becomes a facilitator of the message. It's not just happening for the happening's sake. It's happening to create an audience so people will listen to the message. And you'll notice the same was true for Jesus. All the miracles that he did created space for the message. And when the miracle would have blocked it, he started to shy away from it. And he tried to bob and weave away from those kinds of things. But it all created an opportunity for him to be heard. So that the purpose of the power is to bear witness that this message is coming from God. Right? So that the witness can have his testimony validated. And if you read the book of John, you'll hear Jesus talk about that as well. Jesus describes that as well, so that you could believe that so that they could believe that you sent me. Right? And Jesus says that even at the tomb of Lazarus, that voice wasn't for me, it was for your benefit, that you can believe that I came from him. And Lazarus becomes the biggest testimony of Jesus's, coming from God. Even when we talk about the guy who was blind from birth,
Yeah.
his testimony was, I was blind, but now I can see. Ain't nobody could do that but God. So this man have to be from God.
Yeah.
Right? Who is that controls the winds and the waves? If he's coming from God, then I need to listen to what he has to say. So the Spirit is now being poured on to empower the message to move forward and to validate the messengers. And what is the messenger being asked to do? Simply talk about what he's seen and heard. If you go even to Matthew 28, the Great Commission, what does that say? Matthew 28, 16.
Okay. Then the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain where Jesus had told them to go. When they saw him, they worshipped him, but some doubted. Then Jesus came to them and said, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age.
Teaching them to obey everything I commanded you. That sounds like a witness, right? Because all you're doing is passing on what you've learned. He taught me this. He told me this. I'm going to teach it to you. And I'm going to teach you to live like him. Or like, I'm going to teach you to live like he taught me. He discipled them. They discipled others in what they told him. It's like a kung fu master passing on his knowledge and teaching his style to students. And then they started and teaching their style to students. So this one master style passes down to others. But essentially, a disciple teaches what he learned from his master, just like a witness declares what he's seen and heard. So discipling and witnessing are essentially the same thing. You'll also notice that when Jesus sends his disciples out, and even in the Old Testament, when they go out of the Spirit, their concern is not the conversion. Their concern is the delivery of the witness, as bearing witness. At that point, people have heard the testimony. What they do with it is their business. If they accept the witness and they want to learn more, then they get discipled. And they're taught the ways. But the concern was just to bear witness. And the Holy Spirit empowered their witness and validated them to be messengers from God. So, given that that's what it is, what does that look like for us today?
Right.
I think it's as simple as I was blind, but now I see. And as I grow, I teach what I learn. It's really, I had this experience with Jesus. And this is how this experience...
Now.
Huh?
It's harder now.
Is it?
Yeah. I mean, I think the world, technology, science, medicine, all that stuff have increased so much that maybe if we were raised or conditioned to understand that God expands the mind of humans and allows them to do some of these things, maybe that would be it'd make it easier. But when I'm talking to people about some stuff, like for people to realize a phenomena, it gotta be something that's just like wild, right? Like I remember when I was younger, I used to be fascinated by the smallest things. I just didn't know any better, and science didn't get this far. Like the idea of the internet, right? Remember back in the day when we first got internet, like, oh shoot, how am I talking to somebody over in the other state? That doesn't even make any sense. All right. You ask a kid nowadays, that's not anything exciting. That's life. Like it doesn't, there's no miracle there. They don't know life outside of the internet.
Right.
And so if I'm grateful that I'm an 80s baby and raised more by 60s babies and 50 babies and 40 babies. But if you've been raised in a technology driven world where we are now, I could only imagine the struggle because sometimes I struggle.
I hear you. Um, I hear you. Let's turn to First Corinthians 12 in light of what you're saying. Um, Courtney, read from verse 4.
Cool.
Read
All
from
right.
verse 4 through to 11.
All right. I got you. All right. 1 Corinthians chapter 12. There are different kinds of gifts, but the same Spirit distributes them. There are different kinds of service, but the same Lord. There are different kinds of working, but in all of them and in everyone, it is the same God at work. Now, to each one, the manifestation of the Spirit is given for the common good. To one, there is given through the Spirit a message of wisdom, to another, a message of knowledge by means of the same Spirit, to another, faith by the same Spirit, to another, gifts of healing by that one Spirit, to another, miraculous powers, to another, prophecy, to another, distinguishing between spirits, to another, speaking in different kinds of tongues, and to still another, the interpretation of tongues. All these are the work of one and same Spirit, and He distributes them to each one just as He determines.
What do you think?
I think my point still stands.
Okay. I didn't disagree, but what do you think? Yeah. Tell me more.
I think in a world of gods, lower G,
Mhm.
right? Like people really believe they're gods nowadays. I can manifest things, I can think about things, I can remove these things, and this is my power. Right? This isn't I'm being blessed with it, it's mine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If we had the idea of someone gave it to me and I'm now executing, I think this Corinthians chapter 12 like hits the nail, right? Like the pilot only knows how to fly because God has opened his mind to that extent to be able to control this thing. And the engineer only knows how to put this heavy thing in the air and stay there because God opened his mind. And cancer can only be cured because but nowadays we don't live that world, right? We live that this is mine. Like this is me and it's I fostered it and I grew it and it's because of the hard work and you can do it too, Jared. You can too. Which is why I'm like it's harder for the Holy Spirit or even the Godhead to show their power when we have lower G gods walking earth and taking credit.
I received that. I received that. And yes, I can see that. So I received it. That that will be a challenge. In an age of technology, that will be a challenge. It'll be difficult to do that, which may account for why you don't see the spirit validating in the same kinds of ways that he did then. Because I like the last verse here. All these are work of the same spirit, and he distributes as he determines. So it wasn't a case of he was just using this. For example, in Acts, you don't see any magic so much, and I'm going to use magic in quotes, magical power with Philip. Philip was told to head somewhere, and while he was walking, he came upon a guy who was reading. He stopped, he talked to him, he explained to him what was going on, and the magic only happened after he did that, and he disappeared. Right?
Mhm.
So the messenger delivered the message because he was obedient and was placed in position to handle the situation, and he was equipped to handle the situation. So The important thing, and you'll even see it with Jesus, Jesus says, you're only here for the food. Because I broke the bread and made this miracle, that's why you're all here, and the healing. But I'm really here to talk to you. These things that I'm doing are to facilitate the conversation. And the change that Jesus is trying to bring about is a relational one. Like the message is love God, love people. And it's the witness comes when my involvement with God is informing the way I live, and I reveal that to you. And I share that with you, and I share that with you, and I teach you, because you see that in the letters of Paul. Paul's letter to the Corinthians is just that. They having all kind of conflicts in their congregation, and then he talks about how to live according to this way. And it's only because of the things that Paul has done that they're actually listening to him.
Agreed. I think, again, it's like writer's credit. The credit has to go back to the originator.
Correct.
We don't live in a society that, one, either credits the originator, or two, believes there's an originator outside of myself.
Fair enough. But we see that very clearly in Exodus with the Pharaoh. He didn't want to credit the originator. He didn't want to respect the originator. And he believed that the power lied with him. And
Agreed.
he drank that Kool-Aid for a little bit when his boys was able to duplicate the effort, right?
Agreed. And I think the simplicity of the time made that stick even more, right? Like, because back then, even with Pharaoh was believed to be half God, half human, right? And in so many ways, if you look at the way God approached him, he approached him like a God. Yo, Dread, I feel people them here. It's fine, no problem. I just want you to let mine go. No disrespect. You do your thing. And so you're right. He drank that Kool-Aid like, yo, me and you is quite equal, my mans. And one had to show and say, okay, it showed the people that there's hierarchy amongst the gods, right? It didn't kill Pharaoh's idea of being a god.
No, it didn't.
It just showed hierarchy amongst the gods. I think today we don't have much hierarchy amongst men to
Correct.
even decide hierarchy amongst gods.
So we're dealing with the same thing, just in a different way.
Yes and no, because our hierarchy is determined by social classism and economic things that, depending on how well you run this, you can go from here to here really quickly, right? Like, and so it's a little more complicated because, and I'm just using Kanye as an example. I'm still team Kanye. All those things are wrong, right? Kanye went from being in debt 300 million 5-7 years ago to hitting 1.2 billion to going back down to 300 million, right? Like he's like it's not it's one of those things that you don't really see. And so the fall from greatness doesn't necessarily include the gods. It just could be the people have decided to flatten you. Versus back then, it's the gods that have decided or shown their hierarchy amongst the flattened people structure.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Jared, speak your mind.
I think I see where Bishop is coming from, but nothing new under the sun, right? And I mean, if you were Nebuchadnezzar, you could flatten people at will. You could throw 3 Hebrew boys into a fiery furnace at will. So I feel like, to Jared's point, the dynamic of most of these things remains the same. The details of how they play out might vary, but the underlying dynamic is still the same. Fundamentally,
No, I would say
men,
the difference. There's a
well,
difference. Though. Think about Iraq and Iran. Nebuchadnezzar could easily throw 3 men in the fire, and everybody's like, "Oh, shuckers!" He could throw the rest of us in there.
right?
Iraq and Iran, they started messing with them women a little too tough, and people started saying, "Yo, this ain't how this is gonna work." Like the respect of the authority was like, "No, we're flipping this regime upside down." Nobody was flipping Nebuchadnezzar upside down.
Right, but you saw where you see rebellions in the Bible all the time.
I'm not saying you don't. I'm saying the respect for the hierarchy is very different. Like, and I think Jared, you mentioned this like maybe 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. Who knows? Western civilization.
Don't have a. They don't have a. They don't. We don't have an appreciation for that whole lordship idea. And by lordship, I don't mean Jesus Lord. I mean just
No,
someone
the
over you.
hierarchy, right? And,
Right.
and so
We're
we
all
don't
God-
have
we're
it.
all gods. We're all gods now.
We're all gods.
And Erica Badu is singing that idea. If we are made in His image, then call us by our names. Most
Some
do not
intellects do not believe in God,
but they
they
fear us
fear
just the
us
same.
just the same,
But,
right?
but
Like-
that but that respectfully is the point I'm making. That you
I agree
had
with you, Jerry. I'm agreeing with Teresa as well.
not mutually exclusive. You had people at the Tower of Babel claiming that they could be God, they were God, and they'd build a tower and storm heaven, whatever the case was, right? And now you have people who basically think the same thing. I am God. I am. So what I'm saying is, while some of the details and nuances may vary, the underlying principles of man thinking he is God, man often needing signs and symbols, or generally one or two things happen. People change. People are either going to change due to some sort of spiritual influence, or they're going to be led to change through spiritual influence, what I call falling on the rock and being broken, or they're going to stay in rebellion long enough to lose enough that will force a change. Because usually when you hit rock bottom is when, unfortunately, most people decide to change, which is what I call the rock falling on you and crushing you. So the dynamic in Jesus' mind, I presume, remains the same. People are either falling on him and being broken, or he's falling on people and crushing them. How that plays out could vary, but the underlying principle, I don't know that his work is any different or tougher or more difficult now as it was then. And I don't know that our working with him is any more difficult than it was for Moses or for, And now I'm seeing where, like, there was some Christian lady who got, I can't remember the fine she got on how many days in prison in the UK just for standing opposite an abortion clinic in silence and praying. She didn't do nothing, no placards, no nothing. She just stood there and prayed. Arrested, fined, the whole 9 yards. So it's like, and I guess, that's not happening all over the world. There are places in China, for example, Christians can't even congregate anymore, can't worship. But then just this weekend not this weekend, last weekend in, I think it's Nigeria, they baptized over 10,000 people into the faith, right? So which is the same dynamic that Jesus talks about at the end of the time. It's like, somewhere they'll be eating, drinking, marrying, being given in marriage. In other places, it'll be like. So I just feel like there hasn't been that much of a change in the dynamic or the difficulty. Approaches might have to change, and experiences may not be as broad or pervasive as they were, let's say, with Pharaoh and Israel, right? But it's.
Let's hold on to that idea, Jerry. And Courtney, go to Acts 5:42. Let's hold on to that. I'm not put it down. Stay in that space.
This chapter 5, verse 42.
Yeah, do 41 and 42.
Okay, so 41. The apostles left the Sanhedrin, rejoicing because they had been counted worthy of suffering disgrace for the name. Day after day in the temple courts and from house to house, they never stopped teaching and proclaiming the good news that Jesus is the Messiah.
Jerry, how you see that connecting to what you just said?
How I see connecting.
Yeah.
Or
do you see it connecting? If you don't, that's okay too.
Yeah, I mean, it's like same experience, right? Because even now, it's about the instruction accounted all joy when you enter into diverse trials. it's not to be happy about the trial, but to assign joy to it, knowing that you're going along a path like the disciples did, that your temporary affliction will work more for you at the end, right? And I mean, they're as it was with them, they're people who just for demonstrating any Christ-like trait have to suffer. Um,
I got you.
but I guess the reward is for those who stay faithful during the suffering.
So yeah, they did come out suffering. My emphasis was in 42.
Mm.
It was the message that they were preaching was that Jesus was the Messiah.
Mhm.
So part of their witness was that Jesus had now become this Messiah. Part of this witness was because Jesus is now Lord, we all need to change the way we live in. Because Jesus has won this victory, we now need to all subject ourselves to him.
Let me ask you a question, Jared, because I'm just thinking of it in terms of what both Bishop and yourself just said, where you know there isn't that, at least in the West, there isn't that focus on lordship and all of that. I'm just random question thinking out loud. That might be one of the reasons. Then you see again, if you see 10,000 people being baptized, it's on that side of the world where they still have this idea of lordship, but you don't really see that in the West. Maybe I don't know.
Not we're doing it for different reasons. We're doing it to benefit ourselves, with autonomy still residing with me.
Yeah, and hopefully God will bless me with a couple of Benzes in between, right?
Correct. But the message and the witness is the impact of living under this way of living, under this system,
Right.
the system that is represented by him. So what we are actually being called to bear witness to is the value of this way of living.
Mhm.
And that's what you disciple people into, the way of living, because they were referred to at the time the people of the way.
Yeah.
So they weren't just teaching a message and converting people. They were trying to show people a
Oh, you mean
different
like
way
what
of
we're doing
living.
now?
Huh?
You mean like what we're doing now? Sorry.
By we, I don't. Before I
Well,
say yes, I want to know
which
who's
which
we
is
and what are we
Christianity
doing.
in the West is largely just, and even Adventism, right? You baptize people, but you don't really disciple them in a way, and
Correct.
then they very quickly leave.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that whole idea of this is the better way, or this is the preferred way, or let me show you how this way helped me, right? And so it now becomes more practical. So it's because I have, and this goes back to what you were saying, Jerry, because of the way I can love you and not subscribe to your thing.
Mhm.
And that now causes you to have interest in it. And now I can teach you how that idea and that way of living is informing the way what you just observed on me and thought was interesting.
The absence of that way, or walking in that way, and that stuff is probably also why you get so much legalism too, because it's easier to just subscribe to legalism than to be transformed and demonstrate the way, right?
And demonstrate how the way transforms you, right?
Yeah.
So like, let's say, you and your wife, not you, Jerry, but a man and his wife, or a man and his wife, who are having marital difficulty, and the man used to be real ignorant and pig-headed and had this view, whatever view that contributed to the problem, and then he decided he's going to subscribe to the way and listen to God and to apply some practical changes in his life as a result of that to the way he navigates his relationship with his wife. If his relationship improves and he runs across a brother who's having similar problems, he can now say, when I made this change to live this way and do it that way, I was able to find success, and you can find success too.
Yep.
That's discipling, because that's what you see with Paul when he's writing to the Ephesians, like in the end of Ephesians 6, when he says, when he gives the advice around unity, or even when he's talking to the Corinthians and he's saying, I wish that you would this and I wish that you would that, and maybe we should have order here and we should organize this way. He's using theology to practically teach people how to live. And you see, Jesus did a lot of the same things in his teaching. And so, to Courtney's original question,
Mhm.
if we understand the mission as being witnessing and discipling, and that the power of the Spirit is meant simply to be an affirmation of our witness or to create spaces for us to be heard, and that He is giving it and manifesting it as He thinks. Because it says in let's go back to the verse, 1 Corinthians 12. First
So
Corinthians 12.
starting from 4. Which one?
Particular verses 7. Now each one is a manifestation of the Spirit given for the common good. And then verse 11, he distributes to each one just as he determines. So if he's distributing and manifesting as he thinks the situation deserves, he's the one who's guiding how the Spirit is show up and how, based on who the audience or the message is supposed to be for, what he would do. Right? Just like with Moses. He told Moses, throw down the stick and it turned the snake. He knew who he was going to be for and what it would need to validate Moses before them. Right? And then he gave them the leprosy thing and the blood thing. And he's like, yeah, go with that. Those three should be enough. When they believe you, now tell them this. It wasn't about the snake and it wasn't about the blood. It was about using those things so that they could receive the message.
Mhm.
And Jesus did the same thing. That's why Jesus does the miracles that he did. Who else could raise the dead but Jesus? But God. He must be coming from God. Now listen to him. Right? I would then say for modern times, if the Spirit is still in that business of distributing as he determines, he then has to determine for this technological audience, what would be the accurate manifestation that would validate these messengers to this new audience. And I would dare argue it's not the mystical spiritual gifts that are doing that in this time. I would dare argue like that the story of I think it was the Haitian guy who got shot in his apartment. And then the family went and the brother went and hugged the girl who shoot him at a sentencing or whatever. You remember that story? And how
Yeah, I
big
do.
it made news and how
Yeah.
everybody was like, how he could do that.
Mm.
Those were the kinds of things that are catching people's attention in this day and age, because those are things that are not commonplace. That's to me, I would argue, and I can't say with any certainty, but I would argue and submit that that's an example of the Spirit creating the opportunity to deliver a message so that he could be a witness to that idea to so many people. And the fact that it became viral gave it more power for the message to go forward. Because it's a message is the significant thing. It's the witness of the message and not the conversion or the fruit that it necessarily brings, because that's all the work of the Spirit to do all that conviction stuff. Does that make sense? Or
Sure. I think so.
does it help to answer your question, Courtney? Or
Definitely. Yeah.
Trika, you have any thoughts there? I see you. They're looking reflective.
I'm hearing her brain going. I'm hearing it from here. So
I mean, what I just received from what you said was just like, we're so overly saturated with expected miracles, and I put miracles in quotation, that it's the simple things that are making the impact. Because like I remember that story really, really well, and I was super surprised by why everybody saw this to be a thing, right? Like I was just like, If the
Yeah.
lady want to forgive, let her forgive. Like, that's on her. Like, I can, I'm one to always say, you like it, I love it, right? Like, it's your relationship, it's your life, it's your brain, and you got to let it go. But to your point, it was more impactful than it would have been if she shot him in the court. Because that's the quote expected miracle.
She shot him in the court, and he woke up from the dead.
Right. And he like, all of a sudden it's just like, yo, oh shoot, like this man is invincible. Like, we'd be like, oh, whatever. Like,
Right.
Where I became pensive, where I kind of sat up, was just like, the verse of Thief in the Night came to mind, where I've always said to fellow Christians, fellow Adventists, because I still identify as an Adventist. I want the record to show that. Just want that out there.
Yeah, we got you in the ledger.
I'm telling you, I showed y'all my baptismal pictures. Now I'm telling y'all how I feel. I just need to get my membership on somebody's books. Anyway, but what came to mind?
Can I get a witness?
I always tell people, like, yo, God's not coming right now. Y'all watch it for him. Like, there's so much going on, right? Like, everyone's at high alert because this person killing that person. And I mean, just the other day, Metro person got killed because they were trying to help a Metro person run away from the person that was trying to kill them. Like, this reckless stuff going out here. But what you just said made me realize, well, maybe he might come quicker. Not that I care when he comes. I don't. Records show that too. Because a thief in the night his ability to be a thief is dependent on his strategy, not depending on which night he comes.
Unless that's part of the strategy.
What I mean is, you're only a thief if you get away with it.
Well, yes.
Right? Like, your approach is what determines whether or not you're a thief. Everybody can try to steal the same night. If I don't get away with it, then attempted theft doesn't count, right? And so, are we just looking at the wrong thing? He could come tomorrow and still be considered a thief in the night because we're focused on these miraculous things, when it was like, nah, I just wanted y'all to see how many times y'all were going to be surprised by somebody actually forgiving. I've been asking y'all to do that for years now. Just saying. Like, so that's really where the sit-up came from.
That's dope.
Looking at the miracles. Go ahead, Courtney.
That's dope. No, I'm just saying that's dope because I think, I was saying that earlier, but not even realizing that's the answer to it as well. Like, what she's talking about that's not the logical thing, right? To have that kind of compassion, to forgive, that's like anti-worldliness at this point. Like I was talking about earlier, like everything seems a little bit more selfish. Now, for you to do the opposite of that, it's just like, how can you be that way? Or what, So I guess it is that simple. So, especially now, I think in our technologically advanced world, since this pandemic, everything, I think we're a little bit colder. I think we don't interact with people the same way. Very transactional in a lot of ways. Everybody's kind of looking out for me first, what feels right. Things like that, what you're talking about, it's the opposite of self-serving. So I think that would cause somebody to say, there's something different about the way you going about things. Why?
And Courtney, I like that you say that, because I'm thinking about, Sodom and Gomorrah flood, right?
Mm-hmm.
What level of self-serving those people had to be on that God thought that the best thing to do was to drown the whole lot of them.
And start again.
Like,
right? What level of self-serving that? And if they had the technology that we had
bruh,
on that level of self-serving,
bruh,
what would that look like?
bruh.
But
They on
Jared,
so that they so we think we advance in our sinfulness, but they was on a whole next level
With
that he had
no
to
help.
drown the whole lot of them.
With no help. Yo,
With
that's
no
wild
help.
to me. There's no help.
yeah.
Yes.
It's like, when we were talking about the children of Israel, God is physically with you. Pillar of cloud, pillar of fire. And people whiling out under the pillar of fire. It's like he's right there. and
No,
lady
we
has
just walked through the Red
3
Sea.
husbands
We
picked up
walk
his
up to the
horse.
mountain. We just walked through the Red Sea and walk up to the mountain, Jerry.
Yep.
We didn't. We clothes still wet
Yep.
from the spray.
You know,
What's interesting with that whole thing about people asking it? It takes me back. I really haven't forgotten that analogy. Well, not that analogy with Jesus' first miracle. Yeah, where he wasn't even interested. It seemed like in performing the miracle, right? Because when his mom asked him, like, what's up? He's like, how is that my business? And then he does it anyway. And he does something that, I'm sure, like most of his other miracles, the Pharisees of the day would have frowned on, right? But just the fact that he did it, people were like, what manner of man is this?
It
And
gives
it's
validity to
essentially the
anything that
same
comes out of his
dynamic
mouth.
for us. Yep.
I was saying it gives validity to anything that comes out of his mouth now.
Yep.
Now you're more willing to hear what he has to say.
this sounds wild.
Uh-oh.
Yo. So we're talking about selfishness. We're talking about the only person who's allowed to be selfish is God the Father.
Tell me more. Before I disagree or agree.
I endorse that message.
I want to hear more first.
Yeah. No,
Remember, well, those listening, y'all don't know. We have the after show. And I'm always like, yo, there's so many levels to this type of sin stuff. Like, if this is what it is, I need to start doing it right. Right? Because I'm not sinning right at this point. I'm half sinning. But if I'm gonna get thrown in there, I gotta just go in. That being said, all sin has selfishness beginning, right? And when you were talking about like Sodom and Gomorrah, a lot of people believe that it was the promiscuity. No, it was just the selfishness. It was y'all just don't care about nothing else but y'allself, and it's very clear in the Bible. We're not gonna go over that. However, God the Father can be selfish, and that's okay.
Tell me more.
Because his image is on the line. And he does what he needs to do to preserve his image above everything else.
But
like and his character. That's the whole fight. Like, if he left Sodom and Gomorrah, if he left the flood, which would have seemingly been unselfish, his whole character is at question. If he hadn't kicked out Lucifer and the 1/3, which would have been seemingly unselfish, his whole character is at play here. Had he not let Jesus die on the cross, which would have been seemingly unselfish, his whole character is at play in this whole thing. He's the only person allowed to be selfish. And selfish is neither positive or negative in this sense, but he's allowed to preserve self.
Self-interest or selfish? And is there a difference between, let me ask it that way, is there a difference between self-interest and selfishness?
I think I get what Sharika is saying. I know there's just, to her point, there's a lot of negative connotation with the word selfish, but like she said, in this context, it's not good or bad. Yeah, because to preserve himself is to preserve his character, and his character is what we're supposed to be transformed in, so we can get to spend eternity with dude anyway. So it's like that has to be preserved above everything else. Otherwise,
so I would throw this counter argument in agreement with where Sharika is going, but just a counter framing to the same idea.
Okay.
the way of the kingdom is agape. The way of God is agape. God's character is agape, which is active regard for the object of agape because of its intrinsic value.
One another. Okay.
Being the creator, God has active concern for his creation. And he has active concern that his creation operate under the rules that he's given it, because without operating under the agape rules, the whole thing implodes, right? And this is what he's allowed us to see. If you don't do it this way, the thing messes up. If he allows Sodom and Gomorrah to stick, not only do they sink themselves, but it's like a cancer becomes infectious, and you now need to manage it to keep it from spreading. And so while his character is bolstered in that, it's concern for something not just himself and his character that's driving it, but his character does benefit, and yes, his character does benefit from it, but it's greater concern than just his name, because his name is what supports the system. If he does not have that authority to help manage it, then chaos ensues. So he has to keep it under control. And it's only because of what agape is that I don't see it as selfishness, because it's about the other thing.
So, agreed. Yes, and my question then is, I can only and it if we agree that God is the noun love, and embodying the noun love and agape love, then yes. But God isn't an adjective of love, which I think some people would like to like. Oh,
tell me more about that, because I'm not
like, love doesn't describe God. God is the action of love. Like, it is the noun. Love is God. It is He. There is no love without God. Like,
it's also his way. It's both.
it's Him, right? It's but what I'm saying is, I can't say, well, God
It is who he is, but it's not all of who he is. Is that what you're saying?
me.
Yeah.
No. It's everything that He is. But love is selfish in so many ways. But it's everything that He is. But He's not. It's love isn't a noun, and God is not an adjective of the noun. If that makes sense. Like, we tried to, based on what you just even said a minute ago, right? As the creator, we tried to say one can love or exemplify love without any belief system in higher power. And that's humanly not possible. Whether we agree on what that higher power is, it's up for discussion. But love itself is the reflection. It is God.
So it turns out that agape is an adjective, an adverb, and a noun. It's not a verb.
No, I know it's not a verb. It's not a thing. We can't act out love. What I said, it was an adjective or a noun. I wasn't caring about the verb part.
Yeah, I just didn't realize that agape was there's no verb. That agape is not a verb. It's a way of being. It's a way of being. It's not a thing you do.
Yeah, you can't do it.
Yeah.
It's a being thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow.
Interesting.
That's powerful. That's going to be my takeaway. I'm giving it early. Capturing that early. That's
deep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, because remember, that's when God says, "By this shall all men know that you are my disciples, by your agape for each other, by your being."
Oh, hold on. I think I was looking at the wrong word. Hold on.
Uh-oh.
Don't set us up, man. Come on.
I was going to say, man, because we were going away with that one. I'm sticking with that anyway.
Poetic license, right? You just
There you go.
No,
Oh, yes. Agapo is a verb. Sorry.
Agapo, but not agape.
Agapo is the root word from which the word agape comes, and agape is how we transliterate it into English. But so agapo, which is the word for love, is a verb.
Okay.
So it is all encompassing.
Hold on, let me check and see if it have any other versions of this.
It says that the first time it was recorded was in the 1600s, 1610 by the Greek, according to dictionary.com, that is. But it doesn't give you any verb form of the word agape. Agape. Whatever you want to say it is.
It's 1 John 4:7 and 8 is, beloved, let us love one another, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to find a verse that has that.
Mm-hmm.
It's 4:7. I had 1:7. For love, 25.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, agapo is a verb.
It was used in. So here's the question: they use it as a verb. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, all these uses. Well, the word itself is a verb. But hold on, let me check for something else. First John 4:8. All right. For God is 26. Love. Agape is a noun. Yes. So it's agapo is a verb and there's a noun version of the word as well. Yes. Okay. That makes more sense. The word I was looking at was agape, not agape. So when I typed it in, the Google pulled out the English word agape, not the Greek word agape. So that's why I got confused. But you have the same idea expressed in verb form and it's two different words, but similar idea in verb and noun form. It's like any word in English that does both verb and noun.
It's like any other word.
Any of those words. I had one. I thought about trunk. Trunk came, but trunk is not a verb. Trunk is not a verb. So
Anyway, and back to my original idea is that God, the Father, is the only one that could be selfish, and I'm okay with that. He has to be.
I'm not sure if
And I don't mean
I don't know if the sacrifice of Jesus demonstrates selfishness.
Oh, but the contraire, right? So the reason why I say that is because
I gotta hear this one.
I don't believe he's in a constant state of selfishness. I believe he is selfish at times, right? So I sent Jesus down there. Cool, no problem. That's fine. My kid is crying to me like, yo, bro, we ain't gotta, if we don't have to do this, please take me. Please. Like, I can only imagine my little nieces and God kids, they cry out to me. My heart breaks. Imagine the son of God crying to his dad. And my man's like, now you go home, so worry about that. Like, we got a mission to do. Like, that is a selfish move, right? Like, I have to preserve my mission. And I know that you really are gonna understand when you get back here why we're doing this, but I just can't submit to what you're asking me to do at the moment. As a matter of fact, I'm not even gonna answer you. Like, I'm just
but the why of that is for the benefit of all creation.
It doesn't. I'm not saying that he doesn't have a reason to be selfish. We all have reasons to be selfish that are.
No, I'm saying there's reason. The reason makes it not be selfish is what I'm saying.
It's a selfish decision by which, if I am God the Father, I can always reroute if I have to. I can reroute.
Reroute? What do you mean?
I can change my mind. I've done it before.
Oh yes, he can change his mind. He can.
Yeah, but then we'll all be screwed, right?
It doesn't matter. What I'm simply saying is I can wash you guys again if I want to. I can roll this back 15 million times. I can send another Jonah and put in the belly. I can do whatever I want to do. It doesn't
Yes, he
matter.
can. Yes, he was tired with us, and he drowned most of us.
Right. So this is not the
And
first
and if
time
and if he had decided to drown all of us, he would have been completely legitimately justified.
within his right to
Mm-hmm.
do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I'm
But
But
choosing
that
this.
he
wouldn't
would
be
have been
his
doing it
practice.
himself. His
I,
why
what
would
what
not
I'm
have been selfish.
yes, it is. I still have to maintain my character. This
Or
has
I
I
have to
don't
be
care.
concerned about everybody else in the space.
I'm not concerned with you though, Jesus. Right now, I don't really care about you. I'm making this decision whether it's selfish on behalf of the other people that are on this planet, whether it's selfish on behalf of myself, whatever you want to do. I don't care about you. Like, like I have to make this. I'm choosing
No. So if I
because I can
choose
to make
so
this
if I
decision.
choose the group over an individual, am I being selfish?
It depends on
If
what you
I
have to gain from it.
if I choose the preserving the house over the needs of the individual, is that so that we all
Depends
can
on what
live?
you have to gain. It depends what you. At the end of the day, we all can live so that you all can serve me. You all can live so that you all have the opportunity to be with me. You all can live so that you all have the opportunity to see that I said what I said about Satan, and what I said is what I said. This all has to do with me.
Us with us.
but
Because
but
it's
but
he's
it's
not
but it's but it's me. Like it makes us feel good to put the us in there. And again, I'm settled in
I'm
it.
gonna
So
take God as an us. It's us.
oh yeah, the three of us, right? The three of us. But
Yeah, the family us.
but y'all are not as high as me. So it's me. Like I mean,
But
I
we
get what
but
you're
we
saying.
agreed. We'd be doing this in concert. We not, I wasn't just me. Are we doing it in
Eric, you
concert?
just
Right.
cracking me up though. You cracking me up.
Yeah.
But I
I
feel
think,
where you're
like I
going.
said, I think I
I
get
feel
the
where you're
principle
going.
of
He
what
is
you're
the
saying.
center of
So
it. And it all
yeah,
happens around him and them. It does
Him
all
and
happen
them,
around him
right?
and them.
Okay, we can take the him and them. And so to your point, like, do I sacrifice this for the family to eat? It depends. It depends on where I'm going with it. Like, because does that mean the fam now gets to stay with me forever and get an opportunity to get in the house? Oh, okay, cool. Like, then yeah, it's selfish. It is. It's beneficial, but selfish in the same breath because it's about me. And that bothers people, but it also in so many ways supports the notion that Jared told me but he didn't tell me, that you're important but you're not that important.
Yeah.
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 Jared, you are regretting having that conversation.
No, I'm not. I'm not. I'm not. Because she's right. Even in God's own words, throughout the book of Ezekiel, he says, I ain't doing this for you. I'm doing this for the sake of my name. Right.
Mhm.
However, from a higher level view, he's the preservation of his name isn't for his benefit, but for everyone else who's been created's benefit. So like there's a tension there to where Sharika is right, but it isn't. He's not necessarily just doing it for him, but she's right at the same time. So that's why I don't feel too bad about it.
Hey, man. Two things can be right at the
Yeah,
same
Yeah.
time. Huh?
yeah, typically right at the same time. Yes.
The reason I said so,
Oh.
when I said I endorsed the message, right? Your words, Shrika, I think it takes some people. Let me rephrase that. Some people will take your words and go, right? It's
That
not
way,
your
right?
fault. Yeah. Now that happened to Jesus, right? And then of course just the connotation of selfish. It sounds um like big bad evil thing, right? But I was thinking for some reason, what came to my mind instantly is how presumptuous we are because we believe everything God does is about us. And
Yeah.
once we believe it's all about us, we go run off and do all sorts of trash. And it's like God is duty bound to forgive me. And he's duty bound to do this because it's about me. And if you pause for a second and appreciate what Shrika said, that it ain't really about
No,
you,
it's not
then
about
you
you.
might think twice and be like, you know what? Maybe I won't go do this trash because literally he's not obligated to do it. It's like even if you think about it, there are places you will go, things you'll involve yourself in. I mean, all of us have been guilty of it. And then after the fact, you're like, I'm sure your guardian angel was probably like covering his eyes while he was trying to get you out of there, right? And it's like, why did you just assume
that I'm coming in for you, right? Like,
I don't need to? What is it he said? He's of purer eyes than to behold evil. It's like, why did you just assume you only block lighting up some 10-piece or something, and I have to come in, when the gunmen come through and save you? I don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
If I choose to, great, but
Plenty times I don't.
and you can't vex. You can't vex.
But yeah, even as we read the book of Exodus and I think about it, he keeps saying, I raised you up for this purpose so that my glory could be known. I mean, that could lend itself to what Sharika is saying. But when you think about it in the larger scheme, his glory being known kind of gives validity to his way of being so that we all can benefit. And so it still is about others while it is about him. So both are true at the same time.
I think it forces us also to realize that we don't have full context in many things, right? And so, like, we're saying both can be true.
No, both are true.
I'm saying both can be true. And I'm saying can only because I'm okay if they aren't. And I say that just because I understand that I don't have a lot of context, right? Like, and I'm using, and don't take this the wrong way, whoever's listening, these guys know better. I'm using a book that's been translated over the years to provide context, understanding that context may still be missing. Hence why I'm saying can. That doesn't invalidate the book. That's not where I'm going. I am missing context. And we've all talked about, like, there's other books that aren't in the 66, 72, whichever version you have, that give extra context to these stories that are in the books to be like, oh, okay, da, 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 da. And so that's where I'm going in that. It can be my limited knowledge, my limited study, Sharika, period, is okay with that.
You know, I actually see some of that, Sharika. Again, 3 Hebrew boys. God is able, and he will, but if he doesn't, he can and he will look out for us. But if he doesn't, because he just decides, nah, today's the day y'all gonna be, like crispy bacon.
John the Baptist, James the disciple.
I was going to say, yeah.
He was black. He definitely was black. He died early in the movie. He was the first one to dead. He even make the second Sorry.
He's the first to go, huh? First to go.
I mean, Peter survived all kind of thing and get let out of jail 3 and 4 times.
What about John? John
James
died on the island of Patmos, and he's like boiled in oil and all sorts of crazy stuff.
James was dead.
James just shows up and like
James was one of us. He was one of us. One of
James
us.
and Stephen.
Stephen definitely. And John was the Karen of his day. So presumptuous. I'm gonna get you out of this. You put yourself in it.
I will never look at John the same way again, Sharika.
I'm just saying, you done run your mouth, and now you want to involve me. I ain't gotta do this. Like, you should shut up. That's what that is.
I got a question. Does our understanding of God, in the sense of me paint the picture, the tribunal, right? The body, Father, Son, Spirit, change the dynamic of, again, how all of these decisions are being made. If they're coming together and saying, this is what I think we'll do, what we should do. Not just like it's like a singular, because you were talking about there was a us before they made more of us, right? So does that change the way that we view that? They decided together.
Oh, wait. Oh, Courtney, that's a great point. This is a thing. Like, we learned this thing in product management called disagree and commit, right? When people say that we're deciding together, there's always the assumption that I completely agree with this decision versus the fact that I trust enough to be in line with the decision that the group has been made.
Even if I don't agree, correct.
Even if I don't agree, but we're one band, one sound in front of this decision.
Mhm. Mhm.
I believe there's that.
And then there's, it's like every time, so well, not every time, most times when God references obedience, he talks about trust first, which comes from love, but actually trust is the foundation from love, separate conversation. But that trust is saying that, I may not have all the T's crossed, I's dotted, I may not see the sense or sensibility in what you're saying, but I'll trust, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, look at this. Like, you tell Peter to come out on the waves and meet you, like logically, no, dude. But I like that. I like that reference because
that's John 17, Jesus' prayer that they are one as we are one, and that and Jesus says, "I didn't come to do my will, but His will." So I'm one with Him, right?
Yeah.
But I'm following along with His plan.
And you saw that in the garden, right? He's like, I really don't want to do this. There must be another way, but all right, fam.
Yeah, that was the plan. We will stick with it. As we want, we'll do it.
And I think the verses you guys just mentioned just even shows the hierarchy of the group.
Yeah.
Right?
There is a hierarchy in the group.
There's a hierarchy in the group, but
is there?
Yeah.
Cliff, I'm gonna get off.
Come on, man. Absolutely, there is.
Don't do that.
The whole book of John. The whole book of John.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Like,
I know I was about to set it off up in here. Go ahead.
And it's because we've been journeying for so long. I know you well enough to know where that came from. But had this been like 5 years ago,
right?
World War III. Like what?
Right.
But honestly, that makes us uncomfortable. I think this whole thing makes us uncomfortable because of the value that, and Jerome, you mentioned it, like the presumptuous value that we've placed on things as humans. The demoted group of people, only higher than the animals in so many cases. I couldn't even say Satan's people because they could do stuff I can't do. Only higher than the animals got the audacity to believe that they have enough context to tell stories.
And the thing is, that was the way it always was, even before Jesus came. We always figured, we got this, we know this, what?
I just think Western civilization has a severe disadvantage because we've flattened
hierarchy.
We've flattened hierarchy. We've made each individual be God unto themselves.
Yep.
And so there's an advantage to flattening it and making everybody equal. But now with each one of us has authority, we don't know how to live under authority.
Exactly, and that's where you see trigger warning. Even when people talk about diversity of and inclusion, what does that even mean? And equality of outcome. How can you have equality of outcome if you don't have equality of effort? So you're gonna reward. And that's why we raise sufferable entitled kids, right? Because you're going to reward somebody who only put enough effort in to get a C with an A because, it's your effort that counts. You didn't know. No, you didn't work for it. You didn't earn it. What is... But you don't want to hurt their feelings. So, you don't want to have...
I would even go as far that you don't have equality of starting point, much less effort, much less end point. Right? Like,
but we try to create it even without those things existing, right?
Most definitely. I'm even just thinking like how you're talking about like grading, right? Like you give a C, you want to give an A. I remember being top of my class in high school, but I'm an inner city kid. you get to New York State school and realize, man, I am not as smart as I think I am in relation to everyone else that was in New York State who didn't have the city system on their back, right?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, when you have a bell curve in class, like I've seen my 32 out of 100 become a B simply because of the bell curve. Praise the Lord, praise Jah, right? Some people may be upset about that, to your point. Like, wait, you didn't even put in that effort. But I could be on the other side to say, I didn't have the tools to even try to put in the effort that you put in, Jerome.
Mm-hmm.
But what that does in some instances, it sets you up, right? Because I was looking at some research from Dr. Thomas Sowell, right? And he was saying a lot of these like even institutions, affirmative action or whatever, and you have quotas. And similar scenario, you leave your school as an A or B student, and had you gone to for want of a better term, an average college, regular college, you would have stayed an A or B student. But no, we want to maintain quotas, so we send you to MIT, and you flunk out. And it's because we've actually set you up.
Agreed.
Because you, for whatever reason, you may not have had the resources, whatever, but you weren't ready for what.
No, you're not set up. So that's my point. Like, you're not even set up to get on the mark.
Yeah.
And then you get on the mark, and then you race, and you don't win, but you win, right? So it's a cluster, right? So like, I didn't get the B. I really got a 32 out of 100. And I'm not making this up, folks. I sat down and took a test for 4 hours and got a 32 out of 100 more than once. So
We appreciate your honesty. So
this is why
It wasn't a zero. You did your thing.
I won't say, I was going to say something.
Half full, half empty.
yeah.
I'm gonna share a joke on that. It's funny. I remember this class. The test was 4 hours. There was 4 questions. First question, I don't know what that is. Second question, I know that question. Third question, if you change this question to be this and this to be that, then this is how you would do it. Fourth question, I've never seen this a day in my life. Hour and 15 minutes in, I hand my paper in just like that. Literally, I answered the second one. I changed the third one to fit me. First and fourth, no idea what that is. Hand it in. Teacher loses his mind, calls the Office of Minority Student Affairs and the counselor that is in charge of me and says that he believes I've had a psychotic break because of what I just turned in. I'm in my bed in my dorm room. Knock, knock, knock. The counselor shows up and he's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, I'm just taking a nap. What's up? He's like, "I get a call that you left an exam early." I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "You answered 1.5 questions. The second one you answered wasn't even the question they asked you." I said, "I know. I'd rather you think I'm a fool than know I'm a fool." Like, I know. So, and he burst into laughter and he was like, "Okay, I will let them know that you're okay because they told me to come check."
Wow, a psychotic break.
Wow.
Because nobody does this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I'm not gonna sit here all day. I could go sleep. Like, this is a waste of my time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in that, Jerome, I knew y'all set me up to fail. I ain't even gonna embarrass myself. I'm going, like, it's fine. Don't even worry about it. But I laugh because when you perform the way that they expect you to, all of a sudden it's a psychotic break. It's like, so if I had sat here for 4 hours and given you this, is that okay? Like,
Twiddling your thumbs, just going.
Yeah.
I'll just make it look like I stayed here.
like, so anyway.
Courtney,
Yes.
how you feeling?
Yes.
Courtney, how you feeling today?
Me?
Yeah, in terms of your question.
Man, I feel good, man. I took a lot of notes too. I feel like, I feel armed to do what he asks us to do.
Which is
I think I always make it always seems harder when you're reading it. You're like, what? But yeah.
Which is what?
Yo, just share. I like what you said. Demonstrate how the way transformed my life. You know.
Yeah, Jared, well, all of you have you all ever looked at any of the there's this pastor Tim Ross. He has a podcast called Basement Dwellers or the Basement. I don't know if you all have looked at any of his. This man is he's about as real as I've seen anyone get.
Hmm.
And it's funny, with just one of his sermons, short clip of it, he was referencing talking about how a man needs to have character in his own home. And he was saying part of being a man is, accepting your failures and whatnot. He says sometimes, you might have to reference the fact that, you used to drink at this bar, but you don't anymore. And here's how. You used to go to that massage parlor, but you don't anymore. And here's how. He says, but the problem is we're all so busy trying to give people the impression that Christ waves this magic wand and fixes everything. And we were all born perfect and without sin. That real people are like, how on earth am I ever supposed to become a Christian like you guys? Because it seems like you all never struggle, you all never have debates, you all never think, you just wake up every morning and it's like, Jesus juice, I'm perfect.
Right.
And that's where the witness is problematic or false, because that's
Yeah.
not we're
But
not
we don't
sharing
this
our experience.
correct. And being a witness assumes you've had the experience. And
Right.
we're robbing ourselves of the experience because we just want to appear good.
Mm.
And therefore we really have nothing to witness of, right?
Yeah, let's take one more verse, Jerry, because of that. Let's take one more. Revelation.
I just set you up there, Courtney. Now you have to go read again. Sorry.
Man, that's all good. It's for the people.
Revelation 12. Yeah. Revelation 12, 10 through 11.
All right, I got you. Then I heard a loud voice in heaven say, now have come the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Messiah. For the accuser of our brothers and sisters, who accuses them before our God day and night, has been hurled down. They triumphed over him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. They did not love their lives so much as to shrink from death.
Mhm. How did they triumph over him, the accuser?
By the word of their testimony.
Lamb and testimony.
Yeah.
Blood
Blood
of
of
the
the
Lamb.
Lamb and the testimony of the effect of the blood in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And
they
how the
didn't love
blood
their
is
lives.
contributed to your way, to you living the way.
Right. Mm.
Mhm.
I'm gonna just say something. I would be so curious, that particularly like particular times of the year everybody gets into testimony. And sometimes I listen to some of the testimonies. I'm not hating on anyone, but I'm like,
Yeah, we've co-opted the word. There's testimony from a witness perspective. We've
yeah.
co-opted testimony to talk about what benefit God has given me. This testimony is I was bearing witness. I bore witness, that kind of testimony to what God has
I was
done.
bearing witness and I'm bearing fruit. And it's not just, God gave me this new job.
Yeah, I'm a witness of what Christ has done and how he's impacted me and how living under his way has changed me and how it can help you.
Can a testimony not have a happy ending?
Absolutely.
I ain't never heard one in my life.
The story of John the Baptist is a testimony that does not have a happy ending.
Mind your business. That's mind your business.
You
The
don't like
testimony of Samson did not have a happy ending either. That was a powerful
Choose your
testimony.
vaginas wisely. That's like
man. The story ain't over yet, so we don't know.
The story of who? Samson?
Yeah, it's not over. He sleep.
Samson dead. He done dead.
He sleep.
When he get up, it's a new story. It's a new page, new chapter, new book.
Hey, that's what I said. You don't know. You know,
Samson,
I don't know when he
Samson
wakes up.
2.0.
It depends when he wake up.
So I'm being honest here, right? Like I was being faithful at first, but I think it's important for us to spend time in talking about the not so happy ending witnesses, because I think it grounds
Mm-hmm.
Christianity, right? Like when you go to church, people, dang, I can't say that. I might not get my membership back somewhere.
That's when
what,
you
what, I,
open your own.
what I'm trying to say is like people talk about their best moments, right? Like they scan their mind for like the most negative that became positive situation versus like, yo, we really should probably talk about like, God slapped my wrist a couple times
Yeah.
because I sat there and did some dumb stuff, and can't say that I've come on the right side of win, but I can say I'm alive, and a win is a win, right? Like I can do that.
Right.
But I don't think we do that. Going back to the presumptuous nature of humans, Jerome, I'm not getting over that, and I love it. Y'all really think that somebody cares if you live or not? It in the sense that you care.
Courtney, I have a testimony for you to read.
All
Second
right.
Corinthians 12.
Which one you said, Corinthians again?
Is this person dead already? Because then
Yes.
it's not.
2 Corinthians 12.
But he gave this testimony while he was alive.
So
Okay.
he gave his dying testimony while
No, he
alive.
didn't give his dying testimony. He just gave this testimony while he was alive. Let me get a different one. Hold on.
Okay.
Let's go to Philippians 2, verse 12.
Okay.
Yeah, Philippians 2, starting with verse 12.
All right. Therefore, my dear friends, as you have always obeyed, not only in my presence, but now much more in my absence, continue to work out your salvation.
Sorry, no. Philippians 1, verse 12. My bad.
All good. All right. Now, I want you to know, brothers and sisters, that what has happened to me has actually served to advance the gospel. As a result, it has become clear throughout the whole palace guard and to everyone else that I am in chains for Christ. And because of my chains, most of the brothers and sisters have become confident in the Lord and dare all the more to proclaim the gospel without fear. It is true that some preach Christ out of envy and rivalry, but others out of goodwill. The latter do so out of love, knowing that I am put here for the defense of the gospel. The former preach Christ out of selfish ambition, not sincerely, supposing that they can stir up trouble for me while I'm in chains. But what does it matter? The important thing is that in every way, whether from false motives or true, Christ is preached. And because of this, I rejoice.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I will continue to rejoice. For I know that through your prayers and God's provision of the Spirit of Jesus Christ, what has happened to me will turn out for my deliverance. I eagerly expect and hope that I will in no way be ashamed, but will have sufficient courage so that now, as always, Christ will be exalted in my body, whether by life or by death. For to me, to live is Christ, and to die is gain. If I am going to go on living in this body, this will mean fruitful labor for me. Yet, what shall I choose? I do not know. I'm torn between the two. I desire to depart and be with Christ, which is better by far, but it is more necessary for you that I remain in the body. Convinced of this, I know that I will remain and I will continue with all of you for the progress and joy in the faith, so that through my being with you again, your boasting in Christ Jesus will abound on account of me.
Yeah, you can pause there.
Mm.
So, yeah. The other one was, just, Paul's testimony about his thorn. There was another testimony that I really liked. It was first Second Corinthians chapter 1 from verse 3.
Okay. Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us all in our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. For just as we share abundantly in the sufferings of Christ, so also our comfort abounds through Christ. If we are distressed, it is for your comfort and salvation. If we are comforted, it is for your comfort, which produces in you patient endurance of the same sufferings we suffer. And our hope for you is firm because we know that just as you share in our suffering, so also you share in our comfort. We do not want you to be uninformed, brothers and sisters, about the troubles we experienced in the province of Asia. We were under great pressure, far beyond our ability to endure, so that we despaired of life itself. Indeed, we felt we had received a sentence of death, but this happened that we may not rely on ourselves, but on God who raises the dead. He has delivered us from such a deadly peril that he will deliver us again. On him we have set our hope that we will continue to deliver us. As you help us by your prayers, then many will give thanks on our behalf for the gracious favor granted us in answer to the prayers of many.
Word.
Man, so this is like BIG. I got a story to tell.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
it's safe to say that he's thinking about the now and probably even in the future, that will even those that will be touched by his life. You know,
I think I have one more for you. First John, First John 1:1-4.
First John 1:1-4.
Mm-hmm.
That which was from the beginning, which we have heard, which we have seen with our eyes, which we have looked at, and our hands have touched. This we proclaim concerning the word of life. The life appeared, we have seen it and testified to it, and we proclaim to you the eternal life, which was with the Father and has appeared to us. We proclaim to you that we have seen and heard, so that you also may have fellowship with us. And our fellowship is with the Father and with his Son, Jesus Christ. We write this to make our joy complete.
Mm-hmm. I like how John put it there. It just kind of unpacks what the witness is. We talk about what we've seen and heard. We ain't just telling you make up stories.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I once was blind, but now I see. I don't know how he figured it out. He put some mud in my eyes, or he told me to stand up and walk. Or I reached out and I touched the hem of his garment and my blood stopped. Or I had this real bad habit and I still have the bad habit, but I'm making it today. We'll see what happens tomorrow.
Right, right. Yeah.
Or you like Job, though he slay me yet, will I trust him.
Mm.
Or the lady who write the song after her father died, he whose heart is kind beyond all measure gives unto each day with what he deems best. How do you say those words when you just watch your father die in a tragic accident that you couldn't help him for?
Mm.
You know,
Mm.
that's them kind of testimonies. So to Sharika's point, those testimonies are vital. I think I don't know if you've watched The Chosen, but in season 3, the new season, in like the first or second episode, one of the disciples, and I don't remember which one of the names he is, but he's the short one with the curly hair and a little bit of beard who's walking with a cane. Jesus is about to send all the disciples two by two, right? And he giving them power to heal. And this disciple said, Jesus, let me holler at you now, because as you can see right now, I walking with a limp and I have a stick, and you sending me out the power to heal, but you ain't healed me yet. Where's that one?
All right.
And Jesus says to him, just I did it because you can. And can you imagine how much powerful the testimony would be that you are able to do all of these things in the condition that you're in, is essentially what Jesus said to him. He said it more eloquently and with more meaning, but it was essentially that. And then later in the episode, while the disciples are out, the disciple with his partner, because they out in pairs, who had the limp, reach across to this guy who couldn't walk. And you could see in his face the tension of trying to heal this guy, knowing that the guy looking at me, how you gonna heal me while you
Right. You're not
you walking with that limp too? How you coming there trying to heal me? But
right.
then he manages to heal him.
Mm-hmm.
And he and the other guy, the guy they hug and embrace, because of what Jesus had told him. Yes, he was able to heal others, but the power that or the experience that he's having now of being able to do this, but know that Jesus is taking him through, is a powerful testimony, so to speak. So if you haven't seen the Chosen, I would highly recommend it. They took a nice angle and spin on interpreting and telling those stories and bringing those characters to life, and and giving some practical, real meaningful life applications in the way, in the light of the way, to that whole Jesus choosing of his disciples and beginning his ministry. And so I highly recommend it. They're not paying us to promote them, but
They do accept donations because it's purely, what is that?
self-funded, crowdfunded.
Self-funded. Yes, crowdfunded. Yes, that's the word I was looking for.
Thank you, Lauren. Lauren said she loves it, so she gave me a thumbs up as well. All right. So we are at 9:53. I think we should start moving into our takeaway phase. We're just gonna kind of go around and talk about, well, not talk about, but share the ideas that were profound to us, or that were meaningful, impactful to us, and that we're gonna walk away from this conversation. I know we stayed mostly in Courtney's conversation, in the thing that Courtney raised, but we did go around to a whole number of things in the same vein. So, if you had one thing that you're walking away with today, what would that be? And if you are online, I would invite you to, in the chat, share your takeaways. Cliff, I'm gonna start with you and come around to the top. I'm gonna give the bishop the last.
I think what I am taking away is that God's way, His agape way, His community of love leads to a long-lasting, everlasting, eternal community where one drop of selfishness destroys everything.
Word. Except for God's selfishness.
See, I was going to leave that. I was going to leave that part. I intentionally left that part.
Go on.
Sharika knew what I was doing.
How about you, Courtney?
Man, so many things. Just picking off that last one though, I'd say I realized that selfishness is not in our self-interest.
Word.
I think that again, just my question about really being a witness, especially in our time. I guess there's so many ways to go about it, but I just love how everybody helped me to formulate that a little bit better. And right now, just like I would just look at it as not to make it as that complicated. You just show and demonstrate with others, as we're learning to subject ourselves to this lordship. This is the way of living, and it's transforming my life this way, and just share these things, share as we're growing, share with others. They might be more inclined to want to grow with you.
Yep. Jerry?
Um, yeah, you can't testify about things that you haven't experienced, you haven't seen, you don't know. So it's less about trying to figure out how to save everybody and just, experience, know, see, share it, and leave the rest to God.
Right.
Wow.
Trika?
I think it's just a reminder that the realer we are with sharing our experience with God, the more we fulfill our responsibility of showing God's character, even when it may feel from a human perspective not to be positive.
My takeaway was that agape was not a verb, but I had to dial that back. And
Agapo is a verb.
yeah,
Agape is still not a verb.
you're right. You're right. So that's my takeaway. Agape is not a verb.
Valid.
It's a version of what that is, but that idea seemed profound at the time. I think Sharika wrestled. She forced me to wrestle that idea of God being being selfish, and it helped to refine the idea of agape for me. That even God's self-interest is about His creation, which is a paradox in and of itself. His self-interest is about His creation. The selfishness is about others. It's for the benefit of others, which does that now make it unselfish? That idea, I think, is sticking with me, and I'm grateful to Sharika for sharing that, putting that in the ether.
Wow.
We didn't get any in the chat today, so that's all right. Thank you those who joined us and journeyed with us in this conversation. Courtney, I'm not going to ask you to pray today because you did all the reading, so I'm gonna ask the pastor's kid if you do it.
Ooh. Father God, we are thankful again for what we have learned. May we not just be hearers, but doers, so that we may be true and better witnesses for you. Is our prayer in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. We're here every first and third Friday. It's the first Friday of February, so 7 days from now, which would be the 10th, I think, we will be here again. Not the 10th, the 17th. The 17th. 17th. Next 10th is next week. So 2 weeks from now. We are following our Bible reading plan, which if you don't have a copy, you can download from the website waterforthethirsty.com or from the App Store. Just Google Water for the Thirsty, look for the little icon that looks like our brand in there, and you can download it. And if you like Courtney and I and believe in hard copies because they're easier to manage or preferable to manage, not easier, preferable to manage, hit us at info@waterforthethirsty.com and we can organize to get you one. Because of the fact that our conversations come from that, we could seem a little haphazard, but trust me, there's a structure here, and there's a vision. We're grateful to all of you for staying with us, and until we meet again, have a good night and drink up.
Ooh.